Stewart here from Drone Film Guide, the channel where we learn to fly like filmmakers, coming to you in partnership with DJI to introduce to you the Mavic Air 2. Now I know what you're thinking, Stewart, we tune in for your insightful and independent analysis, and now you are just reading from the script. Well, first things first, much as there is an assumption that we are not going to rubbish this Mavic Air 2, since DJI make amazing drones, and I think we can all agree on that, that is hardly a concern, is it? Second of all, much as the Mavic Air 2 does bring us some new features and innovation, primarily what we have here is the very best of DJI's established technology like OcuSync 2.0, good quality camera, obstacle avoidance, etc, that was previously reserved for more expensive drones like the Mavic 2 series, but now in this smaller and cheaper package. In the description below we have a link to a purchasing guide that we created comparing the Mavic Air 2 with the other Mavic drones, so you can quickly look at the various specifications and see which drone best suits your needs. In addition, do grab yourself a copy of our free ebook From Drone Zero to Drone Hero, 37 tips to get you flying like a filmmaker. Much as we love the tech, it's what you do with the drones that counts, and our 37 tips will kickstart you to the head of the pack in that respect. Link in the description below, it's free, so grab yourself a copy now. Much as we loved the original Mavic Air, there were some drawbacks, and those have been completely dealt with in this Mavic Air 2. First up, if we talk about battery life, the stated battery life on the Mavic Air was 21 minutes. I would say we got about 15, 16, 17 minutes out of it, which is fine, but by the time you've taken off, composed your shot, got into position, so on and so forth, you have about 10, 12 minutes of actual working time before you have to return to home and land that thing with 20% battery remaining. The stated battery life on the Mavic Air 2 is 34 minutes. It's the longest of the Mavic series now. Now, let's say we knock 5 minutes off that and we say we get 28, 29 minutes of effective battery life. That's a pretty good chunk of time to do what you need to do with the Mavic Air 2. The original Mavic Air used an enhanced Wi-Fi transmission system communicating between the controller and the drone itself. Depending on your environment, we would find that you could fly the Mavic Air 100 meters away and lose your picture, and that's quite hard to work with if you're creating cinematic footage. We now have OcuSync 2.0 on this Mavic Air 2 and a stated transmission range of 10 kilometers. Now, I'm not remotely interested in flying the drone anything like that distance. What I am interested in, however, is an indestructible signal between the drone's camera and my FPV, my monitor that's in my hands, and the OcuSync 2.0 gives us that. So that is a huge upgrade on the Mavic Air 2. We have a new camera on the Mavic Air 2 with a half-inch sensor capable of producing 12 megapixel RAW photographs, 48 megapixel JPEG photographs, and on the video side we have 4K resolution all the way up to 60 frames per second. This is quite a big headline feature, being able to get your 4K at 60. Now, just to clarify, higher frame rates are not better frame rates, they just serve different purposes, in this case slow motion. So if you are filming fast moving subjects, then using 50 or 60 frames per second at 4K is a really great option to have, previously only available on the Phantom 4 Pro. If we're shooting at 1080 standard high definition, then the frame rates on the Mavic Air 2 go all the way up to 240 frames per second in the slow motion mode. In the past, when I've seen drones, action cameras, 360 cameras give us these kind of frame rates, to be honest, I've not even tried them because the assumption is that the picture quality will be absolutely awful. Now, as it happens, the picture quality at 120 and 240 frames per second is actually very good. Of course, there's a drop-off in resolution, but the image is still sharp, the colours are accurate. I was very, very pleased, and it is something that I would use if I had a need to really slow down the motion in a shot. I'm pleased to see a D-Cine-like picture profile on the Mavic Air 2. It's something that we don't have on this Mavic 2 Pro. You have two options: shoot 8-bit at normal mode, which is really contrasty and saturated, or if you want to use the 10-bit mode, which is the reason to buy this drone, you have to shoot in their D-Log-M profile, which is kind of hard going when you're color grading. I like the D-Cine-like profile. It's just flat enough to give you some flexibility in post without stripping all the color out and giving you an awful lot of work to do in post. If you want nice colors straight off the bat, then you can shoot in normal picture profile as well. You'll notice that we also have the option of recording video with the H.265 codec. This is helpful for producing smaller file sizes from the 120 megabits per second footage. Please don't confuse this with the 10-bit video capture available on the Mavic 2 Pro, which also utilises the H.265 codec. We have a new high dynamic range video mode, in theory giving us better roll-off between the highlights and the shadows as the image captures more dynamic range. Whilst I applaud DJI for trying to incorporate high-end features like HDR video in a consumer drone, what I see here in the HDR image on the right-hand side of the screen is shadow recovery at the expense of blown-out highlights. In other words, the HDR image is simply brighter than the standard image, as you can see in the histograms and in the waveforms. 8-bit HDR video is always going to be a tall order, so I'll get back to you on this once I've had more time to investigate. Sticking with the camera, the rest is much as expected. We have a fixed focal length of 24mm, we have a fixed aperture of 2.8, and we have a fixed focusing system as well. So that does away with any concerns of producing mushy footage because you didn't focus every time you pressed record. The Mavic Air 2 gives us the ability to capture raw photographs. If you've never taken a raw photo into a piece of editing software like Adobe's Lightroom, then prepare to have your mind blown at the ability to manipulate those colours, especially with aerial photography, where very often we'll have a bright sky because there might be a sun in it, and we'll have a slightly darker silhouetted landscape. The ability to play around with those exposures after the event and get a more balanced image is extremely useful. The resolution for standard JPEG and RAW photos is 12 megapixels. However, we do have a new mode that gives us 48 megapixel JPEGs. You can see in this test where we zoomed in 20 times the impact that having all those extra pixels makes. So if you're planning on blowing up some huge piece of wall art, or you want to crop in on a piece of the image, then you might consider using this mode. We tested the new Super Photo mode, whereby depending on the conditions, DJI selects between HDR, hyperlight, scene detection to give you the best possible result for that photograph. Again, the results are just presented in JPEG, so if you're wanting more manual control, you can achieve that, but by and large, I think the results are quite good, and as a go-to way of just getting quick snaps, this could be the best option. In terms of video intelligent flight modes, we have quick shots, which, as I've explained on this channel, are not just gimmicky selfie modes, they're actually extremely useful tools for creating cinematic footage, especially if you're flying by yourself and want some kind of third-person view vlog type content to go in your videos. In terms of intelligent flight modes, we've also seen some upgrades, and the Mavic Air 2, in my opinion, incorporates the 3 best intelligent flight modes out there. Active Track gets an upgrade to 3.0, Point of Interest 3.0, and we have Spotlight 2.0. If you haven't seen our video on Spotlight mode, then do check that out, because it is, in my opinion, probably the best and most underrated intelligent flight mode that DJI has to offer. We have a new hyperlapse mode that takes full advantage of those 48 megapixel photos and gives us an 8K output. We haven't been able to test that, but you can see an example that we did on the Mavic 2 Pro if you don't know what a hyperlapse is. In terms of obstacle avoidance, we have front, back and downward sensors. We don't have the upward facing sensors nor the sideways facing sensors that we have on a Mavic 2. Internal storage comes in at 8 gigabytes, an extremely useful feature. Saved my bacon on more than one occasion when I've been out on a shoot only to discover that the SD card is still stuck in the computer from the night before. The Mavic Air 2 uses the DJI Fly app for control. That's the same app that was introduced with the Mavic Mini. We have a few more options because, of course, the Mavic Air 2 is a little bit more complex, but it still retains that nice ease of use compared with the rather more complex and involved DJI Go 4 app that is used for the Mavic 2 Pro. I did get a bit of a surprise when I saw the size of the Mavic Air 2 controller. This is the Mavic 2 Pro controller, which, as you can see, is significantly smaller. Now, there's a couple of reasons why they have done this. The main reason, from what I can tell, is the ability to integrate this harness for your monitoring device. One little detail that I do love about this approach is that This has been very, very accurately designed to not press any of the buttons on your phone. I don't know if you've had like an old Phantom controller, or even when you're working with this system with the other Mavics, all these volume buttons and on-off buttons get pressed and you end up having the phone kind of hanging halfway out the side so it's not accidentally pressing things as you go. The other thing I actually really enjoy about this is it's nice to actually hold a controller when you're controlling the drone. With the other system, you've got a phone jammed in here, so you're kind of holding the drone, you're kind of holding the controller. It doesn't feel as good in your hands. So there are some upsides to this. In practical terms, of course, if you're going for sheer portability, it's better to have a controller that size than that size. But it is nice to use, I will give it that. Having discussed all the various attributes that the Mavic Air 2 does have, is there anything that it doesn't have? Well, if we make a quick comparison with the Mavic 2 Pro, then the difference is the camera. That's what it comes down to. Here we have a 1-inch sensor, low light beast, quite frankly, with the capacity to shoot 10-bit video. And that really is amazing. You can check out our old videos on that. It's fantastic. I haven't done a proper side-by-side test just yet, but I can't see how a 1/2-inch sensor shooting 8-bit can compete with a 1-inch sensor shooting 10-bit. However, this requires quite a bit of expertise to get the best out of it. This does not. But I'm just telling you, that's where the difference lies there. If you want variable focal length, then you either need to take advantage of this Mavic 2 Pro's HQ mode, which allows you to punch in and get a kind of 40mm equivalent full resolution 4K image, or you get a Mavic 2 Zoom, which has a variable focal length. So again, that's where the difference comes in there with the Mavic 2 Zoom. It's the camera. If you're going for absolute maximum portability and you have an issue with regulation in terms of 250 grams, then of course the Mavic Mini is your choice. But this is compromised in terms of a lot of functionality that's been taken off this to keep the price down, so obviously it doesn't cannibalize the likes of the Mavic Air 2. So for those reasons, I actually think this could be our go-to drone in future. There have been a lot of times where I just didn't want to shoot 10-bit H.265. It's just hard going on my computer. It's a pain to bring it in and have to proxy absolutely everything in Final Cut Pro just so I can play it back. We've got 2015 MacBook Pros. They do great. I have no intention of spending another £2,500 on a brand new MacBook Pro, so we want to keep those. A good quality 8-bit 4K image coming off the likes of a Mavic Air 2 would be perfect for us, and this could be our go-to drone. We'll see. Do stay tuned on this channel. We're going to do a lot of analysis to really get to the bottom of this. Hopefully you found that a useful overview. Do grab yourself a copy of the comparison chart to help you with your own purchasing decisions. We also have that free ebook from Drone Zero to Drone Hero, 37 tips to get you flying like a filmmaker. Get yourself a copy of that. Pleasure to talk to you as always, and we will see you next time.